You've seen the work we've put in, day out, challenging myths, debunking old wives' tales, and rejecting poor breeding practices. We've dedicated years of research, study, and real-world experiences to perfect the art and science of breeding. And we do it for one reason: to bring you the best, most accurate information possible. Because you know what? You deserve nothing less. But to keep this mission growing week after week, we need you. If you found value in the Bred to Perfection podcast, please take a moment to rate and review us. A 5-star rating and a quick comment might seem small, but every review helps us reach more breeders who need to hear the truth, who want to learn what it really takes to create, improve, and maintain top quality strains. This isn't just a podcast, it's a movement, and you are a vital part of it. If you believe in what we're doing, if you want to help others wake up and become better breeders, push this podcast to the top. Rate, review, and share. Together, we make a difference. Thank you for standing with us. Now, let's get to work. Entertaining, informative, and educational. Inspiring content that makes a difference.
This is the Maximus Troy Publications Broadcasting Network.
Join the Academy. The Breeders Academy proudly presents Bred to Perfection with Kenny Troiano, a show for serious breeders.
Whether you are looking to create a new strain or simply improve an old one, you have come to the right place.
Daddy, I want more chicken.
Oh, boy.
Now, here's your host, Kenny Troiano.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Bred to Perfection. My name is Kenny Troiano, and this, my friends, is the podcast devoted to helping you become a better breeder and taking your strain to the next level. That's right, my friends. It doesn't matter if you are brand new to breeding or you've been breeding for many years. There is something all of us can do to improve our fowl for future generations.
Warning, this show contains radical ideas that could be considered dangerous.
Okay, welcome to another episode of Bred to Perfection. I'm Kenny Troiano, founder of the Breeders Academy, and I'm here with my wife Nancy and my co-host Frank Bradley. What's going on, guys?
Hey, Connie hit the nail on the head with that intro.
That was a good one.
That was a good one, yeah.
We're controversial all the time, aren't we?
Pretty much.
We've got fires breaking out everywhere around here. Every time I turn around, I tell you, the planes have been flying over nonstop all day. Big tankers shaking the house and the whole bit.
We have nine fires.
2 of them are surrounding my dad out in the Humboldt area. I was talking to him before the show and let him know that if you need us, they're going to evacuate you or the fire's getting close, call me and I'll haul butt up there. If I get a call, actually Nancy has my phone. We may be out of here quick, but I think we're okay for now. Rain's on the way, so it should damper it pretty good.
Yeah, it's been really dry. I am involved with this watch app, I think it's called. And that thing was going off all night, so I didn't get any sleep. I felt compelled to, every time that little alarm bell went off on it, I was waking up and reading it, making sure that it wasn't getting close to Humul.
Every time we turn around, a new one's breaking out. And especially in our area, I can't tell you how many we've had just in our little town here. But the fire department, they get on it pretty quickly. Those planes are up in the air and it's out pretty quickly, which is good.
It just burns itself out here. It's just got to get pretty bad before anybody does anything about it. Because we've got all these little valleys, what they call the hollers. So it comes to the road, it dies out. A lot of times it takes care of itself. This year, I've seen maybe 2 small ones, and that's the first ones in years that I've seen here.
Well, it's really dry. We have had hardly any rain, which we usually have quite a bit of rain this time of year, and the winds are really high. Matter of fact, yesterday, the winds were really bad. Probably the worst I've seen in a long time. And they're always threatening to turn off our power because of winds. If they were going to turn it off, yesterday would have been a good day. So I went out and bought all these generators. So if they turn our power off, we're good to go. And they keep threatening to turn it off. They never do. And I'm like, damn, I really like to give these things a try. You know, they're actually kind of disappointing me.
That's the thing. If you're prepared, you never get to use them. As soon as you don't have stuff like that, it'll happen every time.
I know. I've got 3 generators sitting in the garage. You got 2 in the house. And I don't even get to use them.
It was so bad yesterday when I was delivering the mail. I felt like I was getting a facial sandblasting.
Yeah, she had it real bad.
It was not fun.
Yeah,
I came home and I'm like, don't talk to me. I got to go get in the shower and just like relax.
That wind's what makes it dangerous, though. If it wasn't for the winds, you guys wouldn't have that much of a problem with fires out there. But that wind, I think they said this first go around in LA, it was 100 mile an hour winds?
Really?
It was 100-mile winds.
I've never heard that high. Wow.
We had some gusts out here, at least 50 miles.
Yeah, easy.
It was so bad they found a bunch of buzzards out on the West Coast there, miles out into the ocean. The wind had blew them out, and they just winded themselves, and down they went. So they was putting them in a boat and saving them, taking them back to shore.
Yeah, because it's going from east to west, these Santa Anas. That's exactly what's going on. I started getting everything ready today for the show because my show desk is here, my work desks are over there. So I started looking everything over, and everything was just filled with dust. The wind was blowing dust and dirt through the windows onto all my equipment here. Yeah. So I spent a good portion of the day dusting everything because it was so thick.
Well, you know, Ramona in general, it's dirt. There's a lot of dirt out here. We don't have grass lawns. Yeah, you have your weed lawns in February, March, but yeah.
It looks like grass.
So what else is going on, guys?
Well, here's the thing. It's sunny and beautiful here. It was a high today of 30, so it was great. It was awesome.
Your turn to rub it in, huh?
No, that felt good.
30 degrees was good?
Yeah, after 17 below, yeah, it felt real good.
Yeah, we're supposed to get snow come Sunday, Monday. It's supposed to be pretty cold. So we'll see. I mean, if we can get snow down in Pensacola, Florida, we should probably be able to get snow here. It only happens once in a blue moon. So, going to talk about the roundtable?
Yeah, we have a really good show today, so I can't wait to get to it. So let's get going. For my members, we're going to stop right at an hour. Join us on the website in the back end, and we're going to continue the talk. And actually, what we're going to do is link what we're talking about today to the Founders Program. So make sure you do that. If you're enjoying the show, make sure to join the Breeders' Academy. The registration page is open. Once you join, you're going to have instant access to the website. You'll have access to the Founders Program, the Masters Class videos, members roundtables, programs and courses, daily articles, expert advice from Dr. Gallardo, Peter Brown, Brian Reeder, and we also do coaching calls. So make sure to go to www.breedersacademy.com to join.
If you really enjoy our show today and you want to listen in on the Breeders' Roundtable after the public show is over, you can go join now and then join us in the back end tonight.
If you join right now, you'll be ready to go.
Yeah. About 5 minutes. If it takes 5 minutes to register. I don't even think it takes that long.
Oh, yeah, no, it's just a couple minutes. Yeah. It's pretty easy. And that's it for the announcements. How you like that, Nancy? Flew right through that.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. This show was brought to you by the Breeders' Academy, where we will help you to increase your knowledge of breeding, advance your skills as a breeder, and help you to improve the quality and performance of your fowl. As a member, we'll provide you with the roadmap that you will need to create a true family or strain. I urge you to check it out. You've got nothing to lose, and you can cancel at any time. You also have a 30-day money-back guarantee. Simply go to www.breedersacademy.com to sign up.
The Breeders' Academy will not only change the way you think about breeding, but improve the way you breed your fowl.
I hope to see you there. So let's get started.
Did you want to introduce the show, Nancy?
Yeah, so I just wanted to let you guys know out there in YouTube land what we're going to be discussing tonight. So starting off with what line breeding actually is, because there's so many people out there that are getting it wrong or misinformed on what it really is, how it differs from inbreeding, which is a good one. So there's a difference between the two, how to manage the balance between genetic purity and diversity to avoid the risk of inbreeding depression. We'll be discussing inbreeding depression as well and how to avoid it. And for our members, we're going to be going more deeply into inbreeding depression, how to stay out of it.
Through the Founders Program, you're going to reduce the effects of inbreeding depression.
There you go. Lastly, the big question. What's the difference between breeding methods and breeding programs? Because people are getting a little bit confused about that.
Let's start there. What is the difference between breeding methods and breeding programs, Frank? This is an easy one for us.
Yeah, it's actually the whole picture. A lot of people, I don't know how many years I went through this. I went through it myself. And a lot of people thought that line breeding was the start, the middle, and the end, which it's only one part. Don't get me wrong. It's a very important part for maintaining and improving your family. But the thing about it is, it's only one drop of water in an ocean of different methods to use at a correct time and for a certain length of time. And the way it was done in the old days would be everybody would tell you, okay, start out with a hen or the cock, breed them back to their offspring to 7, 8, 15, 16, as far as you could go back. Then once you go back so far, you take one from the hen, one from the cock, you breed them together, and then you start off again. And that's not even close to how it is. I promise you, if you're doing it that way, you're going to fail every time.
There's so many different methods we have. We have inbreeding, we have back crossing, we have outcrossing, we have line breeding. We have so many different methods that we can use, but that's all they are methods. And everybody wants to pick one or the other and decide that's what they're going to go with, and that's how they're going to create their strain, like Frank was saying. But as we've learned through the years, and that's how the Founders Program is set up, is that there's multiple methods that actually create the program. And they all have to be used at a specific time for a specific length of time to achieve a specific result. I don't see very many programs out there that have multiple methods. Like Frank said, a lot of people are using line breeding as the whole thing, the beginning, the middle, and the end, and then they don't understand why they don't get where they're trying to go. They don't realize there's a lot that has to be done before they get into line breeding, and then there's quite a bit that has to be done at the end of line breeding. We're going to be talking a lot about those things in the back for our members, but we're going to be talking about what Nancy was saying, all the different aspects and the purpose of line breeding, because there's so many people getting it wrong. And every time I turn around, someone's trying to explain line breeding, and I get my members messaging me, oh, you won't believe what so-and-so said about line breeding. They just get it all wrong. I think I was talking to you yesterday because I was at the store with Nancy and Tanya was shopping. I was just standing next to the cart with my phone. And I basically built the outline you see here, Frank, within what, Nancy, an hour?
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, this thing looks really good. So why don't we just go ahead and cover it? Maybe not straighten people out, but kind of give them a better idea what line breeding is all about.
You remember what I told you, though, don't you?
Yeah, but I thought we could cover it without messing things up.
I said that's like going to the edge of a cliff and tiptoeing to the edge of it, and that feeling that you get from being that close, pushing the limit. And I told Kenny, and Kenny goes, I will be all right.
Yeah, I think we can cover it without messing things up.
And Frank's going, I don't know, I might slip up.
Yeah, that's why I wasn't worried about you guys. I was worried about me.
Well, you only got 45 minutes. So I think you'll be fine.
I hope.
We'll be in the back end, and then it's no holds bar, and you can say anything.
Okay, so a lot of people are either comparing line breeding to other methods or getting it confused with other methods, such as the difference between line breeding and inbreeding, Frank.
Big difference. Huge difference.
That is a big difference.
Yeah, big difference. But you see it actually 3 different ways. You see them confusing it with back crossing.
Yep.
You know, you got back crossing, line breeding, and then all the rest of it. And they get them so confused, they get them mixed up. One time, a guy said, well, I'm line breeding, and they tell me they're line breeding, but they're back crossing. Then they tell me they're back crossing, but they're line breeding. So it's very confusing.
Okay, guys, you're being a little vague here. So are you going to explain the definition of both of those?
Let me do it this way. There's a lot of different methods here, like inbreeding and in and inbreeding, and there's all kinds of different methods. And they all want to lump it in inbreeding, like line breeding, inbreeding, not so much back crossing, but they all want to lump in anything when you're breeding within the family as inbreeding. Technically, I guess you could say there's some inbreeding, but the closest form of inbreeding, which to me is the only way you should look at it because of its effects, which could be negative or positive, would be brother and sister mating, which is a great tool used for a specific reason. Not a great tool if you're not understanding what you're doing or why you're doing it or trying to achieve a specific result. So inbreeding to me is very specific, brother and sister. Line breeding is much different. We're going to explain line breeding in a minute. But like back crossing, like Frank was saying, they think just because they bred father to daughter or mother to son, that was line breeding, automatically line breeding. Okay, well, line breeding is a little more entailed than that. And then you have line breeding versus in and inbreeding, which is the one I'm probably seeing the most throughout the chicken world, the dog world, and some other ones too. And that is they're so afraid of inbreeding. They're so afraid of inbreeding depression. They're so afraid of expressing deleterious genes or detrimental defects that they just avoid anything that resembles inbreeding at all. And they lump actual line breeding with that. So their idea of line breeding, which we call in and inbreeding, is breeding aunt to nephew, uncle to niece, cousin to cousin, and they may go as close as half brother, half sister, but that's it. And you just cannot make progress breeding that far apart, because on the other side of each of those matings or other side of each of those birds is a bird that has been outcrossed for the most part. How can you breed a tight family when you're breeding that far apart? You can't lock anything in, Frank.
Now, you took the words right out of my mouth. That's what I was getting ready to say. They're actually breeding birds that should never, ever be line breeding to start with. They've not been cleaned up. They've got so much genetic diversity. I mean, that's a mess you're talking about right there, actually doing birds, just mongrels or hybrids in general, just hybrids, line breeding them. That creates a lot of mess right there.
Yeah. So what's the difference between, let's say, line breeding and back crossing? Back crossing, you have a recurrent parent and you have a donor parent. Those parents aren't related to each other. So what they're doing is they're producing hybrids from that. And the idea is to take that hybrid offspring and look at it and decide, is it better than the parents or not? And if it's not, a lot of people just scrap whatever birds they have and they just start over with something else. Well, that's the main thing about back crossing is I can take that hybrid offspring, which could be better, and breed it back to its recurrent parent. The parent that I decide is the better parent, the direction that I actually want to go. And by breeding that hybrid bird back to one of its parents or that parent back to its hybrid offspring, I'm going to get 99% of the time offspring that are a little better. A lot of times better than the parent. We're getting a little more from them. And then we can move forward. How many back crosses you do will depend on how much progress you make. But you never want to do more back crossing than you need to. It's getting to the point where they're better than the parents and then you move forward. But everybody thinks just because they bred mother to son or father to daughter, that's automatically an inbreeding, which it's not.
What is that actually called? Back crossing?
Back crossing.
Okay, that was my question.
Well, now, what Kenny's talking about with the hybrids, that's making your own strain, really. Now, in an established family is to clone the actual individual that you're doing. And to clone that individual, you want that individual to have everything possible that it should have. It shouldn't have no defects. It should be clean of all and anything negative whatsoever with that bird. And have the required traits that you want to clone. But, Kenny, they're doing birds now that's not even close to that.
Yeah. What's up, Nance?
So if you have an established family, should you not have to back cross?
That's something we'll talk about in the Founders Program.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm just trying to tell you the difference between line breeding and back crossing.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Frank's right. You don't want to line breed anything that has a fault or has issues. The line breeding process is what we call a cloning process. Basically, you're finding a bird that has everything you're looking for, is expressing really good traits. You basically want to make more of them. This is where line breeding comes into play because let's say in an inbreeding is you want to fixate and lock in the genes. Well, line breeding kind of refines it. It actually gets you closer and closer to the bird that you want to clone every generation. So it locks in the monogenic traits and it intensifies the favorable polygenic traits. And that's the neat thing about it. This is why it just bothers me. They get it so wrong. If you look at all the different methods that are out there, line breeding is the easiest method to do. It's the simplest method. But not only do they get that wrong, but they don't do the things before the line breeding right, and they don't do the things after the line breeding right, which even if they did the line breeding properly, what they do in the beginning and what they do in the end is what messes it up. But they don't even do the actual method right.
Yeah, that's true. But you know what the biggest question I get about line breeding, Kenny, Nancy? The biggest question I get is how far do you go back? And you can't answer that question for them. It's impossible to answer that for them. It's going to be different bird to bird. You can't just say, oh, well, you go back to this or you go back to that. You just can't do it. It can't be done.
I will say this, like Frank said, if someone asks me, how far can I go? You're right, completely. Every strain, every family is different, and the birds you're working with is different. Now, if they have a lot of variation showing up, a lot of genetic diversity showing up, then you didn't clean them up properly. And so you probably will never get there no matter how much line breeding you do. I'm a big take it to the limit type of person with some of my programs. And for line breeding, some families can only handle a certain amount. So some, you might only be able to go 3/4, or you might only be able to go 7/8. My goal when I work with my members is, and I'm not going to say where the line breeding falls into the Founders Program, and even if you do know that it's part of the Founders Program, but as my members know, there's a bigger picture when it comes to line breeding that we're not going to discuss here. It's just not the simple method. There's more to it. But I prefer taking it to the limit where if I can push it to 7/8, 15/16 without any issues, I don't have a problem going one more generation to see what I get. And if I see problems at that point, then I know that generation went too far. I get rid of that generation, fall back one, and then I move on from there. So with a lot of these programs, a lot of these methods, to make the program work to its max, is sometimes you got to push them to the limit. And for some animals, this is an issue because they don't want to have to cull them. Well, us with chickens, we can actually eat them. So I have no problem pushing those programs to the max so that I know I'm getting the most. Because if I'm cloning a bird, farther I go, the better the offspring are going to be, and the closer they are going to be to him or her.
A lot of what I see, though, is, somebody says, okay, I went back to 15/16. I went back to 7/8. And they show a picture of the bird that they're cloning and the offspring of that bird, and they look nothing alike. Nothing alike.
That's not right.
And that's just reflected on what Kenny was talking about. There's just so much diversity in them that you're not actually cloning the bird. That's what we're calling making a mess. But if you do it and do it right, those birds, when you get back to 30 seconds or 7/8 or wherever you're going, they're going to look identical to that bird. They're going to have the traits, the looks. I mean, you remade that bird is what you've done.
What's up, Nance? I can see you chomping at the bit.
Yeah, I've got a statement and then I've got a question for you. The statement is, with dogs, because we do have dog breeders inside the Breeders Academy, they have more control because they can test their animals.
We can too.
You can too, but I know dog breeders don't like to do a lot of different things that chicken breeders can do. But they do have more control as far as they can test their dogs, their Adam and Eve, to see if they're compatible. My question to you is, what will you see when you've reached the limit? What are some of the symptoms you're going to see?
A lot of times you're going to see the deleterious genes pop up.
Which are?
Well, it could be anything. It could be size, conformation, it could be defects. It could be all kinds of stuff. Or weakness. It just means you went too far. It can happen at any time. It all depends on how you cleaned them up in the first place. If I do the cleanup process properly, I can take them pretty far. So I don't usually worry about that too much.
That's what allows you to take them that far, is them being cleaned up properly.
Yeah. But the actual line breeding program, this is how simple it is. So you have the bird you want to clone, and you have the bird that's somewhat related to it that you're going to actually do the initial breeding with. And in the Founders Program, it's part of the cleanup process. It's part of the transformation stage where we're able to get the two birds that we start with. And let's say if we're going to go with the cock, it also helps you determine which hen you're going to breed to it. So we breed them together and we get the daughters. And from the daughters, we're going to select the best one that we get from that particular mating. And we're going to breed it back to her father. Then from there, we get the offspring from that. And then we breed him to the best out of that, which is his granddaughters. And then from there, we just follow down the line till we see granddaughter, great-granddaughter, and great-great-granddaughter, if we can push it that far. So we're basically breeding the offspring of this one individual that we want to clone back to him. So we're breeding the offspring back to its closest common ancestor, except for brother and sister. This idea of breeding father to daughter and then doing inbreeding, no, it's not going to get you there. The idea of breeding father to daughter and then bringing in an aunt, an uncle, or a cousin, no, that's not going to get there. Every time you do that, you start it over. You destroy what you were trying to do.
That's very dangerous, too.
Yeah, it's all about cloning that one bird. And the only way to clone that one bird is to breed it to its descendants, generation after generation after generation. You can't get more simpler than that. And it's not as close as inbreeding like they think it is.
Yeah, if you look at the percentage of inbreeding on that, it's very, very small, maybe 25%, a quarter, something like that, which brother and sister is your max that you can go. But you're right. A lot of people thinks that is as bad as actually doing brother to sister.
But none of this works unless you understand your breed and the birds you're working with, understand what represents the breed, understand what constitutes poor conformation, poor type, defects, all that. Selection is a major part of making this work. So you got to understand what to select for, and you got to be willing to cull hard. Because anytime you breed to a fault, whether it's the actual clone, the bird you're trying to clone, or its offspring, and then you start going from descendant to descendant after that, you're just intensifying those faults. So you've got to be very particular about the birds that you start the program with and the ones you carry on with, because it can destroy everything.
Yeah, if you want to reach inbreeding depression, line breed and inbreed. Line breed and inbreed. You're going to get there. If it can be made that way, you're going to reach it by doing that really, really fast.
Because we do say there's something you need to do once you're done line breeding. Inbreeding isn't it. Not at that stage.
No.
Okay.
Totally a different direction as far as that. That's not even close to being where you need to go.
And I'll say this, a lot of people worry about inbreeding depression in the expression of deleterious genes. Well, that's what the Founders Program is set up for, to reduce the effects or the chances of reaching that point. It actually prevents it. So I always tell people, don't worry about breeding them too close. Just follow the program. Trust in the process, because we have a mechanism that fixes all of it. You'll never get there. You just don't understand how much inbreeding you would have to do to actually reach inbreeding depression. And I'm talking about with all animals. Everybody thinks they do 1 or 2 inbreedings, or they breed the common ancestor to a couple generations of his offspring. They start freaking out that they bred them too close. What do, Frank? They outcross.
And a lot of people too, Kenny, they don't understand it as far as they think it's inbreeding, 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 inbreeding. The whole goal is to inbreed. It's not like that. There's very little inbreeding in a good program, very little. And what little is done, I think it's the greatest tool in breeding that you can actually use, myself.
Damn, I forgot what I was going to say. I made the mistake of looking at the chat and getting diverted.
While you're thinking of that, I have just a quick question for you. We've got a plant breeder here that is listening to us tonight, and he was wondering whether or not we were a different sort of breeders. Like, okay, we're chicken breeders. But he's like, for a minute there, I was wondering if you were plant breeders. Doesn't Brian Reeder do a big program with lilies?
Daylilies?
Daylilies.
Yeah.
And he's one of our big donors for information inside the Breeders Academy. So any of you plant-based breeders out there think that this may or may not be for you, the Breeders Academy is definitely good for you.
Yeah, it's funny. I am a chicken breeder, and I have breeders all types in there. We have chicken, gamefowl, ducks, geese, quail, dogs, pigs, cattle, goats. Oh yeah, big time goats. Bees, fish. I don't know. I can't remember all of them. All I know is I can't tell you how it works for them or what they exactly do. All I can tell you is they say they follow the Founders Program and it works for them. I'm not a breeder of some of those, so I don't know all of them. I don't know the ins and outs of every animal that ever exists. I didn't create this for those animals. They took it on themselves to try it, and it worked for them, and they set up coaching calls just to tell me how excited they are and how well it worked. Like bees, I have no idea. He swears up and down he's doing a good job with bees using the Founders Program. I have no idea how he's doing it.
I'd love to be able to do bees, but I can't. I'm allergic to them.
Oh.
If I wasn't allergic to them, I'd have them this spring. I'd have me a bee colony. I sure would.
Yeah, I find this interesting. JS says breeding is breeding.
I always said that.
Yeah, and that is true, but using the right breeding program is important. But he's right in that the Founders Program pretty much works for everything.
Takes the same muscles.
Yeah. So if you follow the process, it works. I haven't heard of anybody using it and said it didn't work for them. But yeah, everybody's worried about inbreeding depression. They don't realize how hard that is to reach. But the other thing too is, and this is why I don't think they should worry about inbreeding, especially if they're using the Founders Program, because we do have a mechanism that fixes that. But it is easy to fix because it's not inheritable, and inbreeding depression is not passed to the next generation. It's similar to hybrid vigor. It's basically the same function, but on two sides of the coin. One is overdominance, and the other one is lack of vigor. But neither one of them are expressed to the next generation. It's not inheritable. So if I have a family starting to show inbreeding depression, all I have to do is select to the handful that actually look pretty good. I'm good. I could actually do, I want to say outcrossing. There's another method that we like to use, and it's pretty much fixed in one generation.
But now, as far as the bird that you're cloning, can it explain what it does to the fixation of the traits to those birds?
Well, it intensifies them. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
So the idea is if I'm bringing to that main bird and I'm bringing to its offspring each generation, I'm getting closer and closer to him. I'm intensifying his traits.
Or her.
Yeah, or her. Because most of my brood pens are headed by hens.
Mine too.
I only have one brood pen that's headed with a rooster this year.
Oh, you went down one then, huh? You had to.
Yeah, well, he got old. He did his job.
That happens.
As much as I wanted from him, I went as far as I wanted to go with him.
So am I to assume that it's better to use the hen line instead of the cock line?
I actually do think that because you can get more from the hen. The hen has a bigger influence on her offspring than a rooster. The only benefit to a rooster, which doesn't work when you're looking at the Founders Program, because the idea isn't to create a lot of offspring, which you can with the rooster. You could take that rooster and breed it to a whole bunch of hens. Well, if you're trying to create a strain, that's not exactly what you want to do. But with the hen, she has a bigger influence on her offspring just for the fact we talk about all the time, which is mitochondrial DNA. If you have a really good hen that's strong and healthy and active and she never gets sick, chances are she's going to produce offspring. They're going to jump out of the egg. They're going to be really active, healthy. They're not going to get sick. They're going to grow and develop properly. And that has a bigger influence on the strain than anything else. Now, the cock, prepotency tends to be a cock thing. The only time a hen shows more prepotency is when the cock is so bad that she just overshadows him. But don't mix up prepotency with the expression of better genes, because that's not what we're talking about. We're just talking about a better quality. His prepotency is similar to mitochondrial DNA, but the mitochondrial DNA actually does more. So if I have a prepotent cock, doesn't mean he's going to produce genes that weren't there before. And I'm not going to get exceptional offspring with traits that they didn't have before just because of that cock. It doesn't work like that. He has an influence on his qualities, basically. And usually that's a male thing.
I've always said it. The hen is the backbone of any family.
Yeah.
I truly believe that.
Yeah, I'm always telling people, be careful and cautious and be more deliberate about the hens that you're selecting. I mean, obviously you want a good cock. I never want to diminish the qualities of the cock, but I can get away with breeding a good hen to a poor cock than I can a bad hen to a good cock. I've talked to so many breeders of all different types of animals, and they'll all say the same thing. It just doesn't work.
That's the way it's always been with me. You can take a mediocre rooster and put him on a great hen and get outstanding fowl, but you can't reverse it and do the same thing with it. You can't get by with it that way.
I know what I was going to say earlier is the biggest enemy to line breeding, especially when you're seeing results and you're doing really good. And like I said, the biggest enemy to line breeding is outcrossing. And they do it for two reasons. They either start seeing faults and freak out, so they do the outcrossing, or they have nowhere to go. They hit the dead end zone and they feel like they have to do the outcrossing. I'll tell you one thing. Once you do the outcross, you basically start over. You did the line breeding for nothing, because now the offspring you're getting at that point is hybrid vigor, and it's not a true representation of what you're trying to get from the parents. They're not going to reproduce themselves either. So if I have offspring that are bad, like we talked about before, I don't do an outcrossing. I just get rid of those offspring that are bad, move back one generation, and that's what I move forward with. In a creation of a strain, or even once you establish a strain, outcrossing should never be part of the equation, ever. You just ruined everything. Frank, we saw it so much in chickens. I didn't think there was any other animals that did outcrossing or even crossbreeding like we do. But actually, I found one. Dogs. They're the worst at outcrossing I've ever seen, ever. Oh my God.
I told you, going back, me and Kenny was talking about that, and I said, I think dog breeders has got one over on the chicken community because they really love that outcrossing. They really do.
Yeah, they think they need it. By looking at the pedigree and measuring the COR, they tie themselves in knots with the COI, the coefficient of inbreeding, which gives them all the reasons to do the outcross, which just destroyed their strain. Now they still call them a family. They call them purebred. They call them foundations. None of those are true. Once they do the outcrossing, they just destroyed all that.
Kenny, I want to say one thing though before I forget it.
Okay.
You was talking about going to 7/8 or 15/16, whatever it be. If they go downhill, you just scrap them and go back to the others. Well, I have seen in the past that people wouldn't breed to the ones that were better. They would go far back as they could go because they thought that those birds were more pure genetically than the birds that were better than them, the last birds. I actually have seen it done opposite way of doing that because they thought the farther they bred back, those birds were better. Even though they didn't look better, they thought they was better because they was bred back farther to that particular individual.
What do you mean bred back farther?
Just what you said. Okay, say if I go to a 3/4 and they look really good. I breed them again, they go downhill. All right, scrap those and go back to the other ones. They don't go back. They keep going forward and they're going downhill and going downhill.
Oh, yeah. No, you never want to do that.
Yeah.
No, what I'm seeing too is they start seeing faults if they don't do the outcross, by the way. They start seeing faults and then they breed the offspring back to the original birds they got.
Yeah.
They start over.
The seed fowl.
Yeah, the original seed fowl. And that's breeding backwards. You never want to breed backwards. You never want to breed forward with faulty birds. Those are like the rules of breeding. You don't mess around with that.
Well, I had to do that back in my younger days of breeding because I kept messing up on them. So I'd have to go back and start over again just to mess up again.
Well, I hear that with chickens and I hear that with dogs now and then where they say, okay, I want a certain animal to show up many times in the pedigree. So I've done the proper line breeding. I'm getting them to a point of perfection. They're starting to look really good. So I want to breed that animal that's many generations back to get more out of them before I lose them back into the offspring. So what do, Frank? We introduce all those detrimental and deleterious genes back into the family that we selected out during the cleanup process. So when we were improving them, making them better, once we brought those old animals from generations back into the fold, into our newer generation, we just started completely over that way too.
All the defects, everything's right back in there again.
Yeah. So the next one would be, how do you measure your success? Because if you can't measure it, then you don't know where you're at. You don't know if you're actually improving them or making any progress. So what I would say is, and this is why the cleanup process is so important, that if I'm seeing a lot of variation, if I'm seeing a lot of genetic diversity, and the offspring is showing contrasting characteristics, then I didn't clean them up properly. And to me, even if I thought I cleaned them up, if I'm seeing all that variations, then something's not right, because that's a good indication that I didn't clean them up. I want to make sure that I'm improving them each generation. So if I'm seeing all that variation, I'm seeing genetic diversity, I'm seeing contrasting characteristics between the offspring and sometimes even with the parents, then I'm going in the wrong direction. I should have stopped what I was doing. I should have said, okay, what's going on here? Why am I getting this? Was the hen that I bred them to, is she the one that introduced those problems or those issues? Or did I not clean them up properly and I moved forward with them anyway? Because I shouldn't be seeing that. They should be better than him each generation. I shouldn't be getting contrasting characteristics. If I want peacocke, I should be getting peacocke every time. If I want white legs, I should be getting white legs every time. So if I'm seeing contrasting characteristics and it's not improving each generation, something's wrong. We didn't do it right.
That's the best thing with the Founders Program. If you mess up, it's going to let you know really fast you messed up. There's not going to be no question about it. You're going to know you messed up.
Yeah. Okay, so how do I know I'm going in the right direction? If the offspring, and this should be improving each generation, by the way, especially if I get to the end, I should see uniformity between the offspring. I should see consistency, which I wouldn't get that genetic diversity, and I wouldn't get those contrasting characteristics. They should be predictable at that time, meaning when I hatch chicks from there, I'm going to know what I'm going to get. I shouldn't see surprises. And they should be able to repeat themselves. Let's say I did take at 7/8, 15, 16. I was a breed that brother and sister at that point just to test them to see what I got. They should be able to repeat themselves easily.
You're not going to get those 4 legs, 4 wings, 2 heads, all that.
Yeah. Mutations occur, but if I see weird things like that, I just know I went too far. That doesn't mean there's a problem. That doesn't mean I scrapped all the birds. That doesn't mean that I started with something bad. It just means that I went a little too far, which is fine. That's a good indication. It says, okay, that's when I should stop. And then I take the best offspring and move forward from there. Uniformity, consistency, predictability, repeatability, those are all indications of a successful line breeding program. If I'm not getting that, then something went wrong. I did it wrong or I used the wrong birds.
Main thing is they reproduce themselves. And that's key.
You don't get that when you're crossing or doing outcrossing. They're not repeating. You're not getting uniformity. You're not getting the consistency. You're not getting the predictability at all, because when you're outcrossing, it's all unpredictable. They cannot repeat themselves at all.
But wouldn't you say that it's really important to know the history of your breed? Because you could be doing all the selecting from year to year to year to get to a purpose of what you want and an idea of what you want this breed to look like. If you are developing a Rhode Island Red and you didn't do your homework on what a Rhode Island Red should really look like, and your friend comes over who knows what a Rhode Island Red should really look like, conformation of body, color, and the whole 9 yards, and goes, what the heck is that? Same thing with American games. I mean, there's certain aspects of the American games that should be followed. A certain type of conformation of body, a certain type, the color, the length of leg, all these things. There are some rules that we should be following, correct, when we're selecting?
So that's what I was saying earlier. When you're doing your selecting, you have to understand the breed. You have to understand what represents the breed. You have to understand what makes up the breed. We're talking about understanding the whole bird, not just part of the bird. A lot of gamefowl breeders understand the purpose of the bird, but they don't understand the bird, the structure, and the makeup of the bird. They wouldn't be adding outside blood like Asil and Peruvian blood if they did. So you're right. They have to have a certain type, which is the overall shape of the bird. We like to say it's the silhouette. If you were to take a silhouette of the bird and look at it, it would give you the overall shape of the bird. Conformation is all its parts and its proper places and proportions, which represents the breed. And then you've got the color. And every variety has a specific color. And if you're just mixing up colors, yeah, you're not going to get there. Then you got temperament, performance ability, production ability, breed characteristics, those kind of things. So yeah, you have to understand the bird to be able to select properly, right, Frank?
Yep. And the thing about it is, I'll say it again, you don't see donkeys running in the Kentucky Derbies. When you see a thoroughbred, you see a
Well
thoroughbred.
said.
When you see American game chicken, you should see not a Bantam, not a Rhode Island Red, but an American game chicken.
Exactly.
Sue says Rhode Island Reds is one complicated bird. I hear that. You would think it'd be easy.
I thought they would be.
Yeah, but I hear that all the time, that they are very...
What's the problem with them? Enlighten us on that, what the problems is with us. Because I've wondered that. I've heard the same thing. I'm curious.
Just from talking to some breeders who are trying to breed Rhode Island Reds, I think they're mixing up the production bird with the actual breed. They're two completely different breeds.
That could be. Yeah.
And then there's confusion, I think, Sue could probably correct me, on how dark that red should be, because a lot of them push it to almost black. They're so dark, they're almost black. But I think the biggest complication is some people breeding them, like Nancy said, they don't understand the breed. They don't understand the structure, because they should have a certain type. They should have a certain length of back with the tail at the right angles. A lot of people, they want to make birds what they shouldn't be. So, and I was that way too when I was younger. Before I actually got gamefowl, I had Rhode Island Reds and I had barred Plymouth Rocks. And I did everything I could to make them look like gamefowl. So I was one person at that time. I was just a kid, but I was one person that didn't understand the breed. I was trying to make them something they weren't, thinking I was improving them. You can't do that. That's why the standard is so important. So we're all breeding our breeds the same as everybody else. We're all doing the same thing together. And so we're maintaining and preserving the breed.
I really don't think that they're trying to change them, Kenny. I think they breed them and what they get's what they get. And they don't try to change them or acknowledge any improvements in them. It's just they breed them, what they get's what they get.
That's true too.
Yeah, I could be wrong, but I think it's a lot more of that than it is anything.
Well, I can say that too about line breeding, that you don't want to breed to everything. Out of what they produce, each generation, you want to breed the standouts. So if you're producing a certain amount of chicks, you want to first start by selecting the top 10% and then grow them out. And then what you move forward with is the standouts. You can't improve any, and this is so crucial when you're doing the line breeding program, is that you do not want to breed to all the offspring. You want to breed to the few that stand out so that they can take your strain to the next level each generation. Because you're not going to get to that cloning of the original bird if you don't. Now, can you improve? It's really tough to say, okay, I got this cock, and at end of 7/8, 15, 16, the offspring are better than him. Because I am breeding him to his offspring each generation. Will the offspring at the end of 7/8 or 15, 16 be better than him? Chances are no. they'll be as good as him. That's why it's so important to start with the right bird from the beginning. Because if you're breeding him to his offspring each generation, you're only going to get as good as he is. So it's so important to do that.
Yeah, you're right. Like I always say, you get what you breed.
Yeah.
Unless you're making your own strain and starting in the beginning stages, you're going to get what you made up. Nothing exotic from that. Maybe just a little bit better.
And we have 2 minutes left into this episode. Is there anything that's really important that you want to get out before we say goodbye and go into the back end?
Well, I was thinking something till I didn't. Frank reminded me of something and I forgot what it was. So any quick questions we can answer before we move to the back?
Well, this is interesting here. Mr. Days is saying that it's interesting. The algorithm listening to Kenny would have been a great hemp and hoops breeder, meaning plants. Chicken breeding almost sounds like breeding plants in general. Make stable lines.
Breeding is breeding.
Breeding is breeding.
We were talking about that earlier. It doesn't matter what you're breeding, whether it's chickens, lizards, fish, animals, goats, plants. If you can breed it, it's basically the same thing. It really is.
I've got my dragon snaps.
Oh, do you?
Every year, yeah. I've bred them for probably 20, 25 years. I like them. They're evasive, easy to grow.
No, there's a few things we can't go into that we will be going into the back end because it's heavily or extremely associated with the Founders Program. I will say that the line breeding is, I don't want to say major part of the Founders Program. Every method we use is a major part. They're all important. But just to talk about line breeding the way we are here, and the members understand what I'm talking about, it doesn't give you the full picture, and I apologize for that because that's something that we talk about on the back end. What I wanted to do is give you an understand what the method of line breeding actually is, because there's a lot of misconceptions out there. A lot of people are getting it wrong. I'm not saying they're trying to purposely mislead you or anything. I just don't think they understand what line breeding actually is. And then their idea of line breeding is mixed up with some of the other methods that we talk about too.
And also, Kenny, if they become members, there's also coaching calls on line breeding, and each method itself that me and Kenny do have already done, and it's on the website. So you've got all those that you can go through and watch. Explains it. You know, me and Kenny have a discussion about it and go over it just like we did here, but in depth. So those are on there as well.
Also, that brings up a good subject matter. If you enjoy the podcast, inside the Breeders Academy website, you have the archive of all our live shows. You can listen to the audio version of our podcast on Mondays. It comes out every Monday faithfully. You can go on iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, any of the podcast venues and find us there to listen to us. But if you want to watch the video versions of us, you have all of those videos at your disposal inside the Breeders Academy.
Real fast, guys. I was telling Kenny this. My aunt, she was on Spotify, and she said, I clicked it up, and there was a picture of you and a guy on Spotify. And she goes, are you singing now? What's the deal? What are you doing on Spotify?
You know, I actually look at the video, what we're doing today, the live show, as the raw footage for the podcast, because eventually these shows become a podcast episode because I get them all cleaned up. I add all kinds of neat things to them. I don't know if you guys notice, if you're listening to the podcast on the podcast side, like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, they're even on YouTube. After the little advertisement at the very end, we do a little after show. The last 6 have had the after show on there, so stick around to the very end. You'll enjoy the little bit that I put on the back end of it. I actually enjoy listening to the podcast. I mean, I'll listen to this show tonight as I'm cleaning up, putting things away, just make sure it recorded okay and sounded okay. But I don't listen to them again after that. I like listening to the podcast. So if I can't find any other podcasts to listen to, because I listen to a lot of different types of things, I'll just throw in our show. Because it gives me an idea how we're doing, how we sound, what we're teaching, what kind of progress we're making. So I like listening to our own show. But I only really listen to the podcast side because I like it better.
The sound's great on them, too.
Yeah, the sound is much better. I do clean up quite a bit.
Much better.
What's he saying, Nancy?
He's asking, do returning members still get the original price from before? He's ready to jump on in.
Email me, contact me, and I just need to know what day and time you want to do it so that I can change the price in the registration page. You go sign up, I change it back. So little trick there. And I've had a few people do that where I changed the price for returning members and they went in there and signed up to it. They got a great deal.
I was getting ready to say,
If you see it, do it. All I can say is do it. Jump in there. You won't see it all the time. It doesn't happen all the time, but that's usually what happens. The members will contact me and say, hey, Kenny, I'm ready to sign up. I say, okay, you ready? So I go change it. They go in there, sign up. They let me know. I change it back. So I've had that happen a couple times.
Get all your family members ready so when it gets changed over, they can all hop on at the same time.
A member would say, hey, can I get re-signed up? I go, yeah, while it's open, let all your friends know. If they can get in there in time, it's worked for them.
That's a good deal.
Yeah, it's a good deal, actually.
Yeah.
And Giovanni, that's a really good question. I think we could answer that inside the roundtable.
Okay. We're a little over.
Let's get in the back end.
We're a whole 4 minutes over than we should be. That's a lot of editing I'm going to have to do now.
I know.
Okay, so thanks, Frank, for joining me. Nancy joining me. Thank all of you for contributing. Your questions and comments actually shape the show, and I really appreciate that. We'll see our members in the back end. Talk to you later.
Have a good weekend,
Bye.
guys.
Okay, thanks for listening.
Yes, thank you again for joining us on the Bred to Perfection podcast show. This show was brought to you by the Breeders' Academy, where by becoming a member, you can increase your knowledge of breeding, advance your skills as a breeder, and take you and your fowl to the next level.
We can also show you how to create a strain from hybrid crosses or mongrel flocks, and help you to create, maintain, and improve your present strains. We urge you to check it out. You have nothing to lose, and you can cancel anytime.
To join us at the Breeders' Academy membership website, go to www.breedersacademy.com.
Best of all, I'll be there to help you every step of the way.
While you're checking out the Breeders' Academy, make sure to sign up for our newsletter, The Breeders' Bulletin. We provide a lot of free bonus materials and some great information that will take you and your fowl to the next level. Well, that's it for now.
We hope you join us next time for another episode of Bred to Perfection. We'll see you later.
Bye. Welcome to the after show. This is the part of the show that doesn't exist. What happens in the after show stays in the after show. If you've mentioned to your friends about the after show, which happens from time to time, no worries. Just tell them not to let out our little secret area of the show. Enjoy!
You could take a true family, I'm talking about from a good reputable breeder, and just say, I'm going to breed brother and sister and see what I get. You breed them, the majority of them is going to be real nice birds if they've been bred properly. Now you take birds that's not been in a proper breeding program, they're not a true family, and they've not been cleaned up, and you breed those birds, you're going to get some of the nastiest looking stuff you've ever seen in your life. It's going to be terrible. But once that family's cleaned up, you may get an oddball here and there, a little surprise here and there out of the blue, but the majority of them, the biggest percentage of them is going to be really nice birds. That's like me this year. I don't think I raised maybe 40 stags. I haven't got a cull yet, and I've got maybe 3 or 4 more birds still free ranging. And I'm not really got a cull. Now, they've got to mature, but I'm talking about defects and oddities and stuff that I don't want in my family as far as that goes. Once you get those birds to a true inbred family, you get them that way. Kenny said it a while ago. They're uniform, they're consistent, they're predictable, and they're repeatable. And that's what makes a family. That's the plus to a true family.
If you're using inbreeding in the beginning of your breeding program, like we do in the Founders Program, it's just part of the cleanup process. There's about 3 different stages we use for that cleanup process, but inbreeding is one of them. And variation, genetic diversity, issues. That's just showing you what's in the genome. That's what you want in the beginning. And people are like, that means I got to cull. And I know I hate culling too, but that's part of breeding. If you're not willing to cull, you're not a breeder.
That's true.
Okay. But if you compare the inbreeding you did in the beginning of the program versus at the end of the program or further into it, when the family is established and predictable and repeatable and you do the inbreeding then, it's a whole different story. You're not going to get that big variation. You've already weeded out those deleterious genes, so you're not going to see those being expressed in the offspring. It's amazing what you get when you do the inbreeding later down the road. It's an option that you have as a breeder to tighten them up just a little bit more. Like I said, I have no problem tightening up the bloodline if I'm not dealing with the deleterious genes, and there's ways to find out what's there. So chickens, we test breed. We cull the ones that are expressed, go on with the ones that are not. Eventually, over time, you'll see that trait less and less to the point you don't see it anymore. Dogs, if I was breeding dogs, I'd get that DNA test every time. Match up my female with my male. And if I'm not seeing any problems, I'd breed them. And chances are you're not going to see anything.
I wish we had that.
Yeah, I do too. You know what I mean?
I would love that.
So
Man, that'd be so nice.
Every time I hear people using the COR and the COI to determine their breeding program or determine the animals that they're using for that breeding program, I'm like, wow, you don't know what you're doing. But that's just not how it works. You're either not inbreeding or you're not inbreeding properly. I want them inbred. I want them homozygous. I want to see homozygosity. I want them as pure as they can be. I want them to share all the same traits.
Without that, just what you said, without that, you don't have a true family.
You don't have a family.
Can't have a family.
No.
And this is what gets me, though. And over the years, I've seen it many times. And it's not been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people. It's been hundreds of people that I've heard it come from their mouth over the years. And they're saying there's people out there that says they've maintained families 30 and 40 years. And it can't be done. I've never been able to do it. And the thing about it is, knowing how to do it, it can be done. Not knowing how to do it, it's impossible. But it can be done. I've got breeding books that goes back that I can prove what we teach, okay? Plain and simple, as far as the Founders Program goes. But some people think it's impossible just because they don't know the process.
If you are enjoying the show and would like to learn more, I encourage you to join me at the Breeders Academy. By becoming a member, I can help you to achieve the competitive advantage.